Hello, welcome to Tom's Aviation and Firearms channel. This is an introduction to what this channel is going to include. It is going to have a series of videos both on aviation and firearms. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the aviation portion of this channel. This is going to be broken into some topics that I would like to discuss. One is based on aerodynamics, physics, and some maybe thermodynamics and how it applies to aviation. Also some FAA information about some of the background in the FAA, how some of it's broken up into, and some things about violations and how that occurs and what's the process. Also, I'd like to look at some studies that the FAA has done and talk about some of them, particularly a couple of them, one called Takeoff Safety, and the other one is on upset recovery and prevention. And the other thing I'd like to talk about in there is some training at the different facilities, what goes on a little bit, and talking about simulators. Not only the ones that are used in pilot training, but also maybe some of the ones that are used in simulation games on PCs or whatever, or sim games. Okay, this is a portion of what my background is in aviation. I got started in aviation in 1966. I started taking flight training as I was getting through with my tour in the U.S. Army. And I started flight instructing in 1968. Did that for several years, particularly until about 1974. I was doing some part-time when the economy got bad, and the rest of it was full-time. There was about three and a half years of full-time instruction in there. In 1974, I went to work for the FAA as an air traffic controller in Ontario, California. After 1 year in air traffic control, I transferred to the Wichita-Gato General Aviation District Office as a General Aviation Operations Inspector. It's also part of flight standards. At that time, they were General Aviation or Air Carrier district offices. Later, that changed to Flight Standards District Office. Basically, flight standards in the FAA deals with regulations as far as with pilots, airlines, flight schools, does accident investigations, assists the NTSB on it, and looks at the FAA requirements. Total amount of time that I worked in the FAA was about 31 years in flight standards. In that, I worked in both the Sacramento, California, and also the Wichita, Kansas office. Under the different assignments I've had, I also wound up working as a air carrier supervisor. Did that for about the last 10 years in the FAA, and that was over a 121 unit, Ryan Aviation. And I had both maintenance and operations inspectors working for me, so I kept abreast of those ideas. See, I retired from the FAA in January of 2006, and a few months later I went to work for Flight Safety International, located in Wichita, Kansas. I taught both ground school and simulators. Also did as a TCE, training course examiner. And that was in the CJ program. I also did the basic CJ, CJ1 plus, the 2 plus, the 3, and CJ4. However, I was not a flight instructor on the 4, just doing ground school. In 2020, with the start of this COVID-19 pandemic, I decided to retire in March of 2020, and I've been retired since that time. As far as formal education, after I graduated from high school, I went to engineering classes. I took them in Southern California. The last school I attended was Cal Poly in Pomona. And my major was aerospace engineering, so I have 2 years of engineering that background. Later, after I got out of the Army and while working for the FAA, I did go back to school, finished up my bachelor's degree in Wichita, and that was through Friends University. And my major at that time was computer information systems. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about my other portion of this channel, and that would be firearms. This is my firearms section, and I'm going to start with my background. I started shooting in the 9th grade because I obtained a .22 rifle at that time, and I got into reloading, basically shotgun and pistol. I got my first shotgun when I was in the 10th grade, 12 gauge double barrel. Then I also got a Ruger single action pistol. It was a Ruger 44 Blackhawk, and that was in .44 Magnum. I obtained that in 1959. Bolt action rifle, a Winchester Model 70 in 1960. Used it for some deer hunting. And that was my introduction to firearms. After graduating from high school in '61, I went to 2 years of college and then enlisted in the United States Army. My MOS was 11 Bravo, infantry, light weapons. Served 3 years in the Army. And as far as my shooting experience goes, I've probably done all types of shooting, as far as like skeet shooting, some trap shooting, hunting a little bit when I was in California. Done prairie dog, deer hunting. Also got involved with the NRA high-powered match. Got as far as expert in that. Shot that for several years in competition. And basically, in 1982, I obtained my federal firearms license. Did a little bit of minor gunsmithing for different things. Did some transfers as far as for other people. And had that license since that time. In 2004, I decided to get a mill and lathe and do some gunsmithing, like installing barrels on guns and doing some things. Mostly did it for friends of mine, myself, and that's been pretty much the extent. I probably barreled 25 different guns during that period. I'll talk a little bit about my machine shop background and what made me decide to do this. One of the reasons I got into doing the machining is that I tried some custom gunsmiths. There was always delays. My brother had the same problem. Sometimes you would get the stuff done correctly. Other times you'd have to do rework on it. Was not real happy with some of the custom stuff I saw. Thought I could do it better myself. So now I'd like to give you a little bit of my background in machine shop work. I started working for my dad back in '59 when I was in high school, part-time in a machine shop that he started in his garage. He had prior experience during the war years, World War II. He worked in the naval shipyards as a machinist, got out, started a business, sold it in 1957. After that, he got involved with working at a small machine shop in the evenings, or swing shift, and then he decided he would like to restart it. So he bought a 13-inch South Bend, moved it into our garage, and started there. And so I got to do some of that work, and from there, I got some background in machining. I worked usually on the weekends a little bit, sometimes in the evenings, during high school, first couple years of college. After I got out of the Army I was looking to get into flying. I needed to do some work, and so I went to work doing full time. This was back in '66 when I was taking flight training, and got more machine shop. The shop basically dealt with production. It was small parts in the aerospace industry. Some was pretty high precision. We'd have batches any place from 50 to 200 parts. And a lot of the single part stuff I got to do myself. So that was my background in those years. Later, when I bought my equipment, or just before I bought it, I decided to get a refresher course. So I went ahead and bought the AGI, American Gunsmith Institute, machine shop course. Went through that. Gave me a lot of good information, decided what lathe I needed to buy, what type of mill I needed. And from there, I've been, that gives you a little bit of my background as a machinist. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit what I plan on doing on my firearms channel. I'd like to show some stuff in the machine shop, basically doing some firearm machining, what I do with that. I'd also like to go through some tools, equipment, how to use them. And then I would also like to get a little bit into firearms. Firearms, I'd like to do some talking a little bit about the history of different firearms. Maybe some stuff as far as in reloading for ammo, history of ammo. And then a little bit I'd like to get into is firearm laws. I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of some of these different laws. Also, I'd like to talk about the Second Amendment, and at least my interpretation of what I think it is and what's going on. And that will give you a little bit of an idea what my channel is about and a little bit of my background. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about my shop. When I did this video, apparently the microphone was not connected, and so I'm sort of dubbing over this. What I show right here is my Bridgeport style mill. It is actually from Taiwan. I obtained it in 2004, and it's got 4-axis DRO on it, which means it has the quill, the knee, and the table, both X and Y axis. Right now, sitting on is a universal dividing head that I used for a job earlier. And that's pretty much the mill right now. As I go through the shop, I will talk about some of the different other things I have in there. Behind the mill, you will see a solvent tank that I use for cleaning parts. And that is there. I do have a fire extinguisher in this shop. And as we swing around here, still looking at the mill, we do have a vertical drawbar that I added. It has power feeds on all 3 axes as far as the table, the knee, and the Bridgeport also has its own down feed on the quill. Over there in the corner, you'll see a black toolbox from Sears. On that is a lot of equipment that I have, is tooling that I store in that right there. Anything else on here? The mill is a 3-phase mill with 3 horsepower motor on it. Scanning a little bit to your right here, you can see partially of a stainless steel toolbox. I obtained that from Sam's. Back in the corner there is my hydraulic press that I have. Obtained it from Harbor Freight. And this is coming up, it looks like a more of a picture of the DRO. The DRO is a Newall. It's a DP 1200. I did upgrade that a few months ago. You can see my other Sears toolbox with tooling in it. In front of my hydraulic press, which is a 20-tonner, I do have a grinder sitting there. Coming around here to the right, you can see partially my lathe. It is a geared lathe. It is a 13 by 40, 13 swing with a 40-inch between centers. Tool post on there is a KDT. I'll talk a little bit about it a little bit later. It also has a DRO on this. And behind there you can see my saw that I have. It's a bandsaw. And I obtained it from Inco, which is a Turn Pro. Going back again to the lathe, you can see there's a Newall DRO. It is not turned on. It is a 2-axis, which means I have the crossfeed and the carriage that's digital readout. There is a tailstock on it, which has a number 3 Morse taper in there. I've got it dialed in. I will show you. I've got it pretty much horizontally dead on. And I think as far as vertically, it's about 1/1000th off. I used a coax indicator to check it. I will show you that. Again, this is a lathe is in imperial or English, which means it does English or imperial threads. To do metric threads, you have to go back in the gearbox to the left there and change some of the gearing. It does have a coolant tank. The coolant tank, the only thing I use in it is a oil for doing chamber reaming. I actually do a back flush on it, and as I do it, so I keep that mixture in there. It's a mixture 1/4 of Dew-Drill from Brownells. It's a very high sulfur cutting oil that they have, and I mix it with 3 parts of automatic transmission fluid. Seems to do a pretty good job on finish and cutting. The lathe itself, it shows as a Birmingham. That lathe is sort of a generic one. It's actually put out by Lux Matter on that. And trying to remember everything I talked about when I did this video. Like I say, it's the audio, I didn't record it. Looking at the saw right now, I was talking about how I obtained, that was does a vertical or it does horizontal. Typically I use the horizontal. It will cover up to 12 inches in width and 7 inches in height. So it's a very good saw. Looking over in the far corner there, you can see my freezer, of course, but next to the freezer is a phase converter. These mill and lathe are both 3-phase power. This phase converter is a rotary phase converter, and it converts from single phase to 3-phase power. Next to it is also a ball-air grinder. It's a carbide grinder. Right now I've got aluminum oxide wheels, I think, on it, on the one on the left side there. And that's used for high-speed steel. Circuit breaker box, I added that last year. It's a sub-panel brought in from my basement. I did upgrade the electrical power to the house. It was at 60 amps, if you can believe that, into the basement. Upgraded the service to 200 amps, put a service box out here, and it's running right now at 90 amps. Next to it on the left side is just a storage space. So space on there when I put different things, some household cleaners, a lot of my oils, and different things. You can see some stuff down there, a big wooden box on the second shelf from the bottom. That a set of micrometers. They're actually Chinese micrometers. And they go from 0 to 1 up clear up to the 11, 12. So there's 12 micrometers in there. It gives me a range all the way up to 12 inches. Typically I've got that because the price was pretty low. I got a good deal on that, brand new, probably about 15 years ago for $200. So I use them as reserve. Typically I don't use those micrometers. I do have as my standard set. I've been using Starrett. I've just upgraded my Starrett, so I have Starrett all the way up to 6 inch. Next to it on the thing there, you can see a little bit of a panel. I'll talk about it later. It's called an EDM machine, electronic discharge machine. And that is used for burning taps out that are broken in something, a blind hole or something you need to get it out. I actually built it to get out a carbide end mill that I had burned into a receiver action trying to drill it. It was case hardened and it broke and I had to burn it out of there. It worked real good. This you're looking at is called a Skyhook. I saw this both on Village Machinery and also A-Bomb 79. They did a pretty good demo of it. I'll probably show it in one. Instead of mounting it on the tool post, I talked to the people at Skyhook and I told them I had a cart and I wanted to mount it there, so I got the cart mounted one. And that allows me to pick up different tooling to put on my mill table pretty much. Some of that tooling, like I've got a super spacer, weighs 170 pounds. It's a little bit much for me to try and lift. There's my stainless steel cabinets with a lot of tooling and stuff in it. You can see up on the top I've got some dial indicators. I'll go through all my tooling and stuff as I do this. This is just sort of an overview of everything. To the right of it, you can see over there is another bench. It's actually a welding table. I took a course in AGI welding, and in that course they had a table as an example. The blue box you're looking at here is actually a Harbor Freight toolbox. It's an Icon. Got it about the first of the year. Very high quality. Here's a second stainless steel toolbox. You can see it off to the left here. And a lot of tooling and things that go in there. You wouldn't believe it, but all these drawers are already filled. I probably need another toolbox. I'm looking at getting probably another Icon toolbox and putting alongside that one and putting my milling stuff up on top. It can take quite a bit of weight on one of those. There's my air compressor. It is from Sears, 27 gallon. Does a good job for what I need. You can see that blue lines. That is from Northern Tool. They're 3/4 inch air lines. I put that into the system, have it plumbed. Let's look at the bench again that I made. The welding so-so on it. Painted it afterwards. Those black tanks under there is EDM fluid. That's used for that EDM machine. You can see a couple grinders. I got DeWalt grinders. A couple of 4.5 or 4 1/4 inch ones, and then a 7-inch one, which is pretty good for doing stuff. Sitting on there is a milling vise. That vise was what I got with the mill. I think I paid $140 for it. It did not have the accuracy that I wanted, so I went ahead and upgraded to a Kirk vise. This gave me about, I think when I was checking, I had about 1,000ths off on the thing. I didn't figure that was close enough. Maybe for a lot of people it would be. From my background, I liked a little more precision on some of my tools, so I upgraded. I've been very happy with the Kirk. You can see the garage doors are insulated. It's not bad in here. Several years ago, I went through and I had new siding put on. There was no insulation on the garage wall on that side, so it's insulated with R13 in there, so it does a good job. It's 2x4s, so put that on there, and plywood and some concrete siding. It keeps the temperatures down pretty much until sun gets around. Hot days, it gets a little warm, but not too bad. Not as bad as it used to be. If the temperatures are 80 or something outside, it's pretty cool in the garage. Again, that's looking at that Harbor Freight toolbox. You can put a lot of stuff in there. I got a lot of tooling in some of that, but it is pretty well froze up. I did get a set of sockets and stuff and upgraded all that. That's in there. They're from a company called Tekton. I'm not sure the pronunciations. I think it's Tekton. They have some very good tools. Pegboard behind it, have a few things that's up on that. Getting another look at my skyhook and my mobile table. Showing the tank a little bit to the right that's went out of view. Oh, this is the tooling behind there. You can see some of it. There's a super spacer. That's the one with the yellow thing out. That goes into the 3-jaw chuck, and you can hook it with the crane and pull it out. It weighs 170 pounds. The other stuff isn't too bad, but that universal divider that you saw in the mill, it weighed 78 pounds. I have bought a scale that I can use on this so I can weigh things, get an idea what it is. Swinging around, looks like I'm showing that gray tank and everything. I will show that EDM and how I did it and how it works. Just looking at the shelves and the different things I have stuck there. If you look a little bit to your left, that thing with all types of with it in there. As you can see on this, just showing my EDM machine there to the left of the toolbox with the micrometers in it. I'll go through and show how all that works. I put that together. I found it on internet. There was a guy, I think, that had a booklet on it and a circuit breaker board that you could buy that was not populated, so I got it. He had a parts list, and I went through and some of my design little modifications what he had. And it's got a lot of different controls on it, and it's being able to actually burn a hole using electronic discharge or a spark erosion. And that's the top. You can't see a lot of it there, but I will show that and what it looks like. Up on the wall, I've got some pegboard. I've got some things. Those cases are welding mask right there. Next to my building here, I actually have a 10-foot by 20-foot storage unit. I wound up not being able to store everything inside my garage here, which is 22 feet by 22 feet, and still not able to work. It's pretty much full, but I can pull things out as I need them. Got some carpenter stuff in there as far as woodworking and stuff. I got a Shopsmith that I bought years ago, probably in 1979. Did several upgrades. So with the motor upgrade and a few extra parts, I actually have 2 of them now and most of the accessories. They also work very good for doing metal work. I've changed the belt sander out, put a belt on there that's for metal, put a wire wheel on the thing, and I can do some wire wheel. So it gives me a lot of choices with that. And lighting, you can see the lights in there. I think I've got 12 different fluorescent lighting. I bought daytime lighting. Works real well. Electrical, I've got a lot of electrical that I put in here so I could was able to get power when I need it. A couple wall charts. I got one over there. That's from MSI or MSC. I guess it is MSC. And what that is, it gives me all the tap drills and metric equivalents and the millimeters and stuff. Got drills that go up the way, all clear up to 1 inch. And that's pretty much an overview of my workshop and stuff. And this about concludes it. And from this, I will should be the end of the video. So anyway, thank you for watching.